call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. And it looks like our first business is approval of minutes.
I would like to put a motion in to table approval of the minutes at this point, so we have a little bit more time to review them, especially since there are several people who are absent this evening.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second. Is there any? I guess we'll take a vote. So can I get nays? Or excuse me. Maybes. No. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. You got that? Okay. So it looks like business item B is accessory use and structures. So John, are you going to present for us?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commission members. We'd like to just have a conversation with you tonight about a potential zoning text amendment and some things that Daniel's been collecting notes just from some things that we hear from our property owners constituent base. So we haven't made any decisions or anything. We want to give you some information and just kind of see what your appetite might be, if you will, for potential zoning text amendments. So a couple background. So we have a zoning code, obviously. Section 4 outlines the process where amendments to the text can be done. And I've been helping out here since about November, and we have a couple of text amendments going to City Council tomorrow night that you've already reviewed as a commission. That being the RV parking, for lack of a better term, and then the wireless communication facilities, or WCF. So just a refresher for the commission, section 4.03, this is text taken directly from the zoning code. This outlines the process on how the zoning code can be amended, and so it also talks about how to change the zoning map or a district map. So item A out of section 4.03 is the initiation of a change to the text and or district map may be accomplished by a simple majority of property owners of record in the area of the proposed change. This would be like a zoning map change, or their authorized agents like an applicant. A majority vote of the council or majority vote of the commission. So we'll get into a little bit on the logistics. You've already done this before, so I just wanted to outline the section of the code that outlines this. What we would like to do is tonight is just have a conversation with you to some things that Daniel's been hearing at the service counter over at City Hall is under section 31, general provisions. This is regarding accessory uses and structures. And we've had a couple of, some of you are on DRB, Design Review Board. We've had a few accessory structures come through recently with DRB. The economy's been relatively good. People wanting to make improvements to the property. So I'm going to take these a little bit out of order, just alphabetically. So section D talks about, in section 31.03, talks about accessory uses and structures and building setbacks. We'll get into that in a moment. And then section F, as in Frank, is accessory uses and structures. And this pertains to lot coverage and size of the accessory uses, or accessory buildings, I should say. The first section, this is right out of our zoning code. Rear setbacks on properties with side yard view fences shall be equal to or greater than the length of the view fence portion of the side yard wall. We're lucky in Litchfield Park, we have a lot of open space, golf courses, parks, and green belts, and so this is right out of the text. And then I might defer with Daniel on just kind of some of the things that he's hearing. He's here every day at City Hall, but we've gotten a number of inquiries from folks that are asking, is there a way to reduce the building setbacks in the rear yard for accessory structures? Sometimes the answer is no. We've had a few projects that have gone through the Board of Adjustment for variance. And we're basically asking staff, is this worthy of us doing a little bit more research and coming back with you, maybe with some diagrams on, like some sample plot plans on, that's showing you a typical rear yard in Litchfield Park, and then maybe some scenarios with some of the things that our residents are asking us. And we didn't want to go into a lot of work until we got input from the commission, if you feel this is something that we should be spending our time on or not. But that's kind of where we're at on this one. I'll come back to this. The next one, because they're obviously related, this is the existing text right out of the zoning code. This is section F, and this is regarding accessory uses and structures pertaining specifically to lot coverage. And that's the building footprint or building size of buildings versus the lot size. So we have a lot of varied lot sizes in Litchfield Park, which is a good thing. So the lot coverage would vary depending on how big the lot is. And then the size pertains to the actual size of the accessory building. So the existing text as it reads today in the zoning code says no accessory structure or combination of structures shall occupy more than 25% of the area lying between the rear of the principal building, in this case would be the person's house, and the rear property line, or exceed 500 square feet in area, meaning the accessory building, guest house, art studio, office would be limited to 500 square feet. Whichever is less, and then it goes on to say no accessory structure shall cause the overall, I'm adding a word, the maximum lot coverage applicable to the lot to be exceeded. Same thing, we've had inquiries from people, we just had a DRB case earlier this year on a lot that backs onto Dysart Road where a gentleman came before DRB last fall, I believe, and then came back earlier this year with some more information for the design review board. He wants to build a accessory building in his backyard, and he doesn't meet all of our standards, but this is just an example. So we're kind of looking for the commission to feel this is what we're hearing from some of our residents. If you feel like I'll go back to the next kind of the ask that why we're here tonight is if there's a consensus from the commission for us to study this a little further, what we would do is, like I said, we'd come back next time with some diagrams and some maps and such, aerial photos, give you some examples of some of the accessory structures that have been built or approved probably in the last year or two, just as an example of the commission, and then come back and figure out if this is something, you know, should we, and we're not advocating, but should we increase the minimum accessory building size, or does the commission feel like a 500 square feet is pretty generous? So we're trying to be responsive to our residents, and that's really why we're here tonight, is to figure out, you know, is there an appetite from the commission for us to do a little bit more work on this before we obviously we wouldn't make any decisions without your input.
You do a maximum of 500 square feet. Now, 500 square feet, does that mean single story, 2-story, the maximum total square footage of the structure, or is it 500 ground and it could have another 5? Well,
through the chair, Commissioner Barry, that's a good question. So our code today advises or requires that an accessory building is limited to, I believe it's 15 feet in a single story. So we wouldn't be suggesting that somebody be allowed a 2-story accessory building in the backyard. We feel it might be imposing on neighboring
So, but
properties.
you did say it's a 16-foot,
I believe it's 15.
ridge, 15 feet
Yeah,
maximum ridge,
correct.
which is still twice as tall, almost 3 times as tall as the side yard fencing.
Right,
So it's a big structure to begin with.
correct.
The other question I have is the 500 square feet. From driving around and looking at the various sizes, shapes, and what we have as far as a lot layout now. Somebody remodels their house and goes from a 2,800 to a 4,200 square foot house.
Right.
And so that footprint, are we superseding everything with a maximum footprint or density of no more than 30% of the total lot area or 22% or something like that?
Yeah, that's something that we would definitely look at. We actually have had a recent DRB case where it was a pretty substantial building addition, and the numbers were almost identical to what you just described, so.
I've been into business for 50 years.
Yeah,
So, you know, I see what's happening and where it's going.
right.
And also the rear structure.
Okay.
Do we have anything in there, or we're going to contemplate saying anything about a basement? Because they could dig it and put a basement under there, and then, you know, so it'd be one below and one at ground level.
Okay.
And, you know, I think looking at, and what I'm concerned about is some of the lots are really nicely sized and well laid out, and there's some others, just a little church over here, that they're shoehorned in there, and they really want to try and get a lot more out of those condominiums or whatever we want to call those.
Okay.
And so that's just kind of off the top of the head.
Sure. Yeah, we could certainly look at that.
I agree with visuals.
Yeah.
I would love to see I'm a visual person, and I'd love to see some lots and some possibilities. You know, what you were saying too is that, you know, developers are always trying to move towards one direction, get as much as possible, and I'd like to see the possibilities of what they could do, and so we can get some perspective on that.
Yeah, we have the capability where we could provide those prepare the visuals. We don't have them tonight. Like I said, we didn't want to put a lot of work into this until we kind of heard from the commission.
No, I support your study. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Commissioner Faith and myself, with the previous consultant, were what they call as a study group for some of these items. And I don't want to speak for Commissioner Faith, but I think we did agree that it felt that we should look into this more as far as some of the larger lots. It might be more equitable that they could have a larger accessory unit, but we still wanted to keep some, you know, parameters around how big it could be as well, and we never really got to those numbers.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly look at that.
I also think it's worthwhile to look into this. In addition, I know the one part that you were discussing up here related to view fences and structures along view fences. And that's a huge, huge issue. And I've heard from a lot of people too, and not just with regard to structures that are physically built, but also like people who will park their pickup trucks and their vans along view fences and leave them there for days at a time. It sort of defeats the whole point in having a view fence, because you don't have a view, but we don't have any kind of regulations with regard to parking vehicles. I know that primarily when our code was written, it was written to maximize it, say, okay, you have to have at least 2 parking spaces, you know, and everyone needs to have a 2-car garage, but nobody considered the fact that 40 years down the road, people may have 20 vehicles that they want to use every few days, and we don't have any controls on that. And so in addition to looking at accessory structures as it relates to view fences and obstructing views. I would also think that it might be a good time to look at parking. I know that we addressed it to some degree a couple months ago. Well, we've actually been talking about it for a while, but I think that that comes into play with this too, because once again, that also has to do with open space and taking away open space for whether it be a building, a storage unit, adding onto a house, or something that is going to be blocking the neighbor's views. So I do think it's worthwhile to look into all of that.
Chair of Commission, I'm fairly new. I mean, I've been helping out now for, I guess it's longer than I thought it was, 4, 5, 6 months. Let us, if it's, I think we have consensus tonight, what we will do, we'll go back, study, including the parking and the view fence situation, put some materials together and then come back and have a little bit more, I'm like you, Commissioner, very visual, and we'll come back with some additional materials and have the visuals so that we can look at some scenarios, including the larger lots and parking. We'll keep trying to work through this particular issue, see where we go.
Yeah, I just think that if we're looking at taking away some of the views, we need to look at the whole thing, not just part of it. So I think it's definitely worthwhile to study it.
Okay. We have what we need, then we have consensus from the commission, we appreciate that. We'll go back to work on our end, and then we'll come back and see you again with some visuals and a little bit more detailed PowerPoint that we can roll up our sleeves and continue to work on it. So we appreciate your input tonight.
All right, we're good. Let's go on. So that includes section B and section C then?
That's correct.
Okay. So we have commissioner reports on current events. Anybody?
Zion National Forest and froze my butt off. My older, youngest daughter ran the half marathon that they do in the national parks, and they were shocked at how much snow and cold they've had all winter up there. So
Yeah.
I have a question about the state of the city. I know it's the same day as the home tour and everything else. Will it be recorded so that you can listen to it later?
To the chair, Commissioner Lawrence, yes, it will be. And I believe they're going to put it up on YouTube after the event.
All right. How about staff reports on any current events?
Staff has nothing to report at this time.
All right. So we are at adjournment. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
17 minutes. Very good.